Every man watching this is being chemically managed, and most of them will never know it happened. Not by a person, not by a conspiracy, by a system that was built, tested, and optimized specifically to occupy the part of your brain responsible for drive, ambition, and the hunger to build something real. You think you're relaxing. You're not relaxing. You're servicing a debt. A neurological debt your own nervous system now requires you to pay every morning, every evening, every time the discomfort of your actual life gets loud enough to notice. And the price of that debt is the version of yourself that never showed up. There is a specific threshold, a point at which a man's dopamine system has been so degraded by low-effort stimulation that ambition stops feeling like drive and starts feeling like pressure, where a great idea produces not energy but anxiety, where a difficult task produces not challenge but dread, where the man looks at the life he wanted to build, feels nothing. Most men watching this are already past that threshold. We'll get to exactly what that looks like. This is dark male code. No motivation, no filler, no lies. Just the frameworks they never taught you and the truths they hoped you'd never find. Here's what's actually happening inside you when you reach for the phone at 11 p.m. Not what you tell yourself is happening, what's actually happening. Your prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for long-term planning, discipline, and the ability to choose hard things, runs on dopamine. Not surplus dopamine, baseline dopamine, the ambient level your brain maintains just to function at full capacity. That baseline is set by contrast. Your brain measures the gap between your current state and your highest recent stimulation, and it calibrates what counts as rewarding accordingly. Which means every time you consume something high stimulus, a 15-second reel engineered by a team of behavioral scientists, a pornographic image optimized for maximum neurological impact, a processed food designed in a lab to hit 3 pleasure receptors simultaneously, your brain raises the bar, and everything below that bar stops registering as worth doing. This is the dopamine debt cycle. You don't become addicted to the content, you become addicted to the relief it provides from the baseline you've already destroyed. The scroll isn't pleasurable, it's necessary. There is a difference, and that difference is the entire distance between a man operating at full capacity and a man who is chemically sedated while believing he is simply tired. Jung called it the shadow, the accumulation of everything you refuse to face, growing in the dark. But Jung was describing the psychological structure. The neuroscience tells us the mechanism. Every hit of unearned dopamine is a deposit into a debt account your nervous system is going to collect on, with interest. The interest is your drive, your clarity, your presence in a room, your ability to sit with discomfort long enough to build anything worth having. You have been paying that interest every single day.
If you're still here, you already operate differently from most men watching this. Subscribe to Dark Male Code. No filler, no recycled advice, just the systems that rewire how you operate. Let's make this concrete. You wake up at 7 a.m. Before your feet hit the floor, you've checked your phone. A notification, a headline, a message you'll respond to later. Your brain has already received its first stimulus hit of the day, before you've eaten, before you've moved, before a single intentional thought has been formed. Your dopamine baseline just shifted upward. And now, every task, every conversation, every decision that follows has to compete with that opening hit. By 9 a.m., you're in a meeting. Someone is presenting a project. It's important. Your future is partially attached to it. But your prefrontal cortex, the part that should be engaged, synthesizing, building strategic thought, is running at reduced capacity because it is already in debt. The man who checked Instagram before the meeting is not the same man who walked past the phone. He looks identical, he performs adequately, but the ceiling of what he can access that day has already been lowered before he walked through the door. The symptom isn't that you're addicted to content. The symptom is that normal life no longer registers as worth engaging with. This is the baseline collapse, the second stage of the dopamine death cycle, and the one that does the most damage because it masquerades as personality. You tell yourself you're not motivated by money, not driven by status, not excited by work the way you used to be. You call it maturity. You call it knowing yourself. It's not. It's pharmacology. The man you were before the algorithm had you, before the infinite scroll, before the engineered content, before the brain spent years building a tolerance to stimulation it was never designed to process at this volume. That man had a different relationship to difficulty, to boredom, to silence. Boredom was not suffering, it was the pressure that produced ideas. Silence was not emptiness, it was the environment in which ambition formed. Difficulty was not a signal to escape, it was the mechanism of growth. Your nervous system once understood that. It has since been reconditioned. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his private journals, not for publication, for himself. You have power over your mind, not outside events. He wasn't writing motivational content. He was writing a behavioral protocol for a man who understood that the mind, left unmanaged, will always choose the path of least resistance. 2,000 years later, that path of least resistance has been industrialized, algorithmized, and delivered directly to your hand in a glass rectangle that vibrates when it wants your attention. Aurelius could not have imagined the specific weapon, but he understood the vulnerability it would exploit perfectly. 4 moves, neurologically grounded, starting with the next 24 hours. 1. The blackout. For the first 90 minutes after waking, 0 screens, no phone, no news, no email. Not because of a productivity philosophy, because your dopamine baseline is at its most vulnerable in the first 90 minutes of the day. Every neurologist studying prefrontal function agrees on this. The first input of the day calibrates the sensitivity of your reward system for the next 16 hours. You give it high-stimulus content first thing, and your baseline shifts up before you've made a single decision. You protect those 90 minutes, and you preserve the version of yourself capable of choosing hard things. Resistance you'll face is the anxiety of not checking. That anxiety is the debt demanding payment. Sit in it. It peaks at 11 minutes and drops. Time frame, 3 days of this, and your morning clarity shifts noticeably.
2. The stimulus audit. For 1 full week, every time you reach for the phone or any high-stimulus input, write down 1 word, the emotion present at the exact moment you reached. Not what you were thinking, the emotion underneath the reach. Boredom, anxiety, anger, loneliness, shame. After 7 days, you have a map, not of your habits, of the specific emotional states your consumption is being used to suppress. This is what Jung meant by shadow work in practice, not philosophy, not journaling about your feelings, a behavioral audit that shows you exactly which emotions you have decided are intolerable, because those are the emotions currently managing you. You are not managing them. 3. The dopamine gap. Choose 1 60-minute window per day, not first thing, not last thing, and remove all stimulus. No audio, no content, no conversation. Sit with whatever surfaces. Your brain will produce discomfort, then irritability, then a recognizable restlessness that feels like boredom but is actually withdrawal. Pass that withdrawal window, and it takes between 20 and 40 minutes depending on how severe the baseline degradation is, your prefrontal cortex begins to generate its own signal. Ideas, clarity, the specific quality of thought that has been unavailable to you because the channel was permanently occupied. This is not meditation, this is neurological maintenance. The man who does this daily for 2 weeks reports the same thing consistently. The things he used to need to distract himself from no longer require distraction. They require attention, and he can finally give it. 4. The delayed first response. Every craving, every reach for the phone, every impulse toward low-effort stimulation, insert a 10-minute gap before you act on it. Not to resist it permanently, to give your prefrontal cortex the time to come online and make an actual decision rather than executing a reflex. Most cravings at their true source are not about the content. They are about escaping the present moment. The 10-minute gap exposes that. After 10 minutes, you either still want the thing, in which case you choose it intentionally, or you realize you didn't want it at all. You wanted relief from something else. And that realization, repeated enough times, begins to restructure the loop itself. Time frame, measurable change in impulse frequency within 10 days. Here is what no one building these platforms wants you to understand. Your attention is not a byproduct of the product. Your attention is the product. The content you consume is the mechanism of harvest. The engagement metrics, the watch time, the scroll depth, these are not measurements of your enjoyment. They are measurements of how effectively your neurological architecture has been repurposed for someone else's financial model. You are not the customer. You are the commodity. The man who reclaims his baseline is not a monk. He is not anti-technology. Simply a man who has decided that his neurological capacity, his drive, his clarity, his ambition, his ability to sit with difficulty long enough to build something real, belongs to him. Not to the algorithm, not to the feed, not to whatever engineered craving fires first when discomfort appears. Nietzsche called it the will to power. Not power over others, power over the self. The specific discipline of refusing to be operated by whatever mechanism currently holds the controls. In 1883, that mechanism was religious doctrine, social conformity, the fear of collective judgment. In 2025, it is a rectangle in your pocket that vibrates on a variable reinforcement schedule specifically calibrated to maximize the probability that you will pick it up. The mechanism changes. The vulnerability it targets does not. You are not broken. You are not lazy. You are not unmotivated. You are a man whose neurological baseline has been systematically degraded by an industry that profits from that degradation. And you have just seen the mechanism clearly for the first time. What you do with that clarity is the only question that matters now. There's one more layer to this. Not what you do, what you stop doing, and why stopping it feels like losing yourself. That's next. Dark Male Code. If this rewired something, the next video goes deeper. Dark Male Code. Built for men done being ordinary. Subscribe if you're ready. Leave if you're not.